Right now, there's a decent chance your computer is taking a screenshot every few seconds. Not because you clicked anything, not because a virus snuck in through a sketchy download, because Microsoft built it that way, shipped it inside Windows, and gave it a name that sounds almost friendly: Recall. Here's the part that should actually bother you. Even after 2 rounds of "we fixed it," even after new encryption, new hardware requirements, and a redesigned security model, a researcher cracked it open again this year. And when he told Microsoft, the company's official answer was that it isn't a bug at all. It's working exactly as designed. Before we get into what that means for you, quick note. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we cover stories like this one regularly, the ones that actually change how you should be using your PC. So let's rewind to where this started, because the origin story matters for understanding why nobody trusts this feature yet. In the spring of 2024, Microsoft unveiled a new class of laptop it called the Copilot PC, built around dedicated AI chips. The headline feature was Recall. The pitch was simple and, honestly, kind of seductive. Your computer would remember everything you'd ever seen on screen. Not in a vague, check your browser history way. In a literal way. It would silently capture a snapshot of your display every few seconds, run those images through a local AI model, extract every scrap of readable text, and index the whole thing into a searchable timeline. Forgot which site had that recipe? Ask Recall. Trying to find a PDF you glanced at 3 weeks ago? Ask Recall. Microsoft framed it as a photographic memory bolted onto your operating system. Then people who actually understand computer security took a look under the hood, and the excitement didn't survive contact with reality. A former Microsoft security analyst named Kevin Beaumont dug into how the first version of Recall actually stored its data. What he found wasn't a minor oversight. It was the kind of mistake that gets a junior developer a very uncomfortable meeting with their manager. The database holding every screenshot Recall had ever taken was sitting in plain text, unencrypted, readable by any application on the machine, not just ones with administrator rights. Beaumont didn't mince words, calling it one of the worst security decisions he'd seen in years, and pointing out that stealing your entire visual history was achievable with a couple of lines of code. To prove it wasn't theoretical, he grabbed an off-the-shelf piece of InfoStealer malware, the cheap, widely available kind sold on criminal forums, pointed it at a Recall-enabled machine, and watched it walk out with the entire database before Windows' own built-in antivirus even registered a threat. Think about what actually lives in that kind of archive over a normal week. Your online banking session, the password manager unlocking your accounts, a private message you'd never want screenshotted, a medical portal, a tax form with your social security number sitting in it. All of it, silently photographed and cataloged, then left sitting there like an open filing cabinet for any malware that happened to land on your machine. The security community didn't hold back. The president of the encrypted messaging app Signal called it a ready-made target for attackers. A former Microsoft executive warned that state-sponsored hacking groups, the kind of teams that work for foreign governments, would treat a feature like this as a gift, since it did their reconnaissance for them automatically. One security journalist put it memorably: when sophisticated attackers break into a network, one of their first moves is figuring out how the people inside actually work, so they can blend in and move money or steal data without tripping alarms. Recall would hand them that playbook already assembled. Microsoft's first line of defense was to insist the data was encrypted. That claim was technically true and practically meaningless. The encryption only applied while your PC was off or locked. The second you logged in, which is the entire point of owning a computer, the database unlocked itself and stayed that way, wide open to anything already running on your system. Within days, Microsoft pulled Recall from its planned rollout entirely. Not delayed. Pulled. Here's the mid-video reminder. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, take a second to like this video and subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep making deep dives like this one. Now, pulling a feature from a press release is one thing. Actually removing the underlying code is another, and that's where this story gets its second act. Windows insiders started noticing Recall-related processes and files lingering on their machines, even after Microsoft said it was shelved. A sign the company had never really abandoned the idea, just paused the public rollout while it rebuilt the security model from scratch. That rebuild took the better part of a year. Recall came back to Windows insiders in preview form in the spring of 2025, and this time, Microsoft actually listened to some of the criticism. The feature shipped as strictly opt-in. Nobody gets it turned on by default anymore, and you choose whether to enable it the first time you set up a Copilot PC. Enrollment requires proving your identity with Windows Hello using your face, fingerprint, or a PIN backed by hardware. The screenshot database itself got moved behind something called a virtualization-based security enclave, a hardware-isolated vault that's supposed to be far harder to simply read off the disk than a plain SQLite file. Microsoft also added the ability to pause snapshots, exclude specific apps or private browsing sessions from ever being captured, and delete your history whenever you want. On paper, it looked like a legitimate response to a real problem. Then, in the spring of 2026, the same researcher who broke the original version came back for round 2. Alexander Haganah, a cybersecurity executive based in Zurich, had built the original proof-of-concept tool that exposed Recall's plain text database back in 2024. This time, he went after the new, supposedly hardened version. And he found that Microsoft's redesigned Vault genuinely held up. The encryption itself wasn't the weak point anymore. The problem was somewhere else entirely, the delivery pipe. The Recall interface is rendered by a background process on your PC. That process is responsible for pulling decrypted screenshots, extracted text, and metadata out of the secure enclave, and displaying them to you when you search your timeline. Haganah discovered that this rendering process runs without several of the sandboxing protections you'd expect on something handling this much sensitive data. No protected process status, no application container, no code integrity enforcement locking it down. In practice, that means any other program running under your own user account, no administrator rights required, can inject itself into that process and call the exact same internal functions the legitimate Recall interface uses. Now, once you've unlocked your PC with Windows Hello, as you naturally do dozens of times a day, decrypted screenshots and OCR text flow through that process in the clear. Anything already running, as you can simply reach in and take them. He published the tool publicly, calling it Total Recall Reloaded. And in test scenarios, it pulled months of chat history, banking session data, and passwords out of a fully updated, fully secured Copilot PC in a matter of minutes. No admin privileges, no kernel exploit, no encryption cracked. Just ordinary code running as the ordinary logged-in user. Before releasing anything publicly, Haganah did the responsible thing and reported it to Microsoft's security team, with full source code and reproduction steps. Microsoft reviewed it for about a month. Their conclusion: this isn't a vulnerability. A company spokesperson explained that the behavior falls within the intended protections and existing controls. It doesn't count as bypassing a genuine security boundary. In other words, Microsoft looked at a tool that can quietly extract everything Recall has ever captured from a standard account with no special access, and decided that's simply how the feature is supposed to work. That answer is exactly why this story hasn't gone away. It's not that Microsoft failed to fix an oversight this time. They clearly put real engineering effort into locking down the storage layer. It's that the fundamental tension in Recall hasn't changed at all. The feature's entire value depends on making a searchable archive of your screen easy to access. The moment you make something easy for you to access, you've also made it easier for anything running on your machine, malicious or not, to access. Hardware encryption protects you from someone stealing your laptop. It does very little against malware that's already living on a system you're actively logged into, which is the threat model most people actually live in. So where does that leave you if you own, or are thinking about buying, a Copilot PC? The good news is that Microsoft's changes weren't cosmetic. Recall is genuinely off by default now. If you've never gone looking for it, there's a real chance it isn't running on your machine at all. On managed business laptops, IT departments typically disable it at the policy level before it ever reaches an employee's desktop, and enterprise-focused controls exist specifically to keep it that way. If you did opt in during setup, or you're not sure whether you did, you can check and fully disable it through Windows Settings, search for Recall, and you'll find the option to turn off snapshot saving and delete anything already stored. On the Home Edition, you can even remove Recall's underlying components from the system entirely through Windows features, rather than just toggling it off. If you want to be thorough, it's also worth checking whether the process still shows up in Task Manager after you've disabled it, since past versions have left background components running even when the feature itself was switched off in settings. A quick look at your startup apps and running processes takes 30 seconds and tells you definitively whether anything is still capturing your screen. The bigger lesson here goes beyond one feature on one operating system. Any tool that builds a searchable archive of everything you do on a device, no matter how good the marketing, no matter how locked down the storage claims to be, is also building the single most valuable target on that device for anyone trying to get at your data. Encryption at rest is a good start. It was never going to be the whole answer, and this year's research proved exactly that. If this kind of breakdown helped you understand what's actually running on your PC, do the usual. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Here's the question I want to leave you with. Now that you know how Recall actually works under the hood, are you going to leave it enabled on your machine, or is this the moment you finally switch it off for good? Let me know in the comments.